production of what it's doing.
Sure. Thank you, man. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you guys, and I appreciate you reaching out to me. Um, for me, as you said, my work tries to focus on actual practical solutions. I tried to spend more time talking about what we can actually do in our lives. And first off, let me say I'm from Houston, Texas, so I live here in the United States, and I have been an activist here in Houston for about 7 years. I'm 32 years old now, and my activism, my push to try to change the world and make the world a better place and to create more free communities and a more free society, not just here in Houston and Texas and the United States, but really trying to come up with ideas all around for people that can apply all around the world. That first came from my experiences before activism. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, just because I think it helps illustrate and helps you understand more clearly why I do what I do, and why the message that I promote is one that's both of spiritual awareness, awareness of deeper self, of reflection, as well as taking action in the physical world. So I try to bring together the worlds of both anarchism, self-governance, voluntarism, and spiritual awareness, a deeper sense of self-reflection and self-understanding. And 12 years ago now, in 2005, I was 20 years old. I was almost about a week and a half of being 21. I was arrested for possession of crystal meth. I was hooked on a lot of drugs. I spent a couple of years taking various drugs and getting into crazy stuff, and getting hooked on drugs, becoming homeless, selling drugs, getting involved with just all sorts of things that were really to the detriment of my mental, physical, and spiritual health. And that came after dealing with, for years, depression and suicide attempts and such. So I've been dealing with these things for a long time. Then I started using drugs as a way to self-medicate and really just to kind of escape. That led to me getting locked up. And from 2005 till the summer of 2008, or October 2008, about 3 years, I did 18 months behind bars in prison here in Texas, back and forth. So I did 11 months first in November 2005 to October 2006, and then I was out for 5 more months, and then I went back for 3 more months. So I was just having this cycle in and out, and it was the first time that I went to prison that I really first I got into meditation. I started to do more self-reflection, just looking for answers, trying to understand why I was 21 years old in prison for using drugs, that regardless of my beliefs now that drugs should not be illegal because free people should be able to choose what they do with their mind and their body and their spirit, I still know that I was using these drugs for very negative reasons. There was nothing positive coming out of this. So I decided to just do a lot of self-reflection. I started to look at myself and try to understand the decisions I was making and why I was doing these things and why I felt so negative about myself and felt so down on myself. And so I get out October 2008 after doing that, after getting into meditation, after starting to learn more about myself, become a more peaceful person, and realize that I didn't need drugs or alcohol or really anything at all to be the person that I was supposed to be. And shortly after getting out of prison, I rediscovered that I loved to read, and that I was an intelligent person, and I cared about the world. And so I started to do lots of research. It led me to research the drug war here in the United States and in our country, the history of the drug war. It's built on racism and money, essentially, and violence, just like most things that come from the state. No matter what state you're talking about, they produce and promote violence in all of their actions. It's because they are not a voluntary institution. So I learned about all these things, and I started to research the world in general, and that kind of spiraled out to eventually me creating this Houston Freethinkers, this activist community. In 2010, I first started as a blog, and then eventually started having meetings. And so for the last 7 years, I've just been dedicating my life to working in my community. I live in the Freethinker house. This is a 3-bedroom house, an old house in downtown Houston area, like in the city. And we have a big community garden here. I live here with 2 other guys, and our whole goal of living together is to focus on using the concepts of freedom cells that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. Using this house as a place to host documentary screenings, to host skill shares where we teach people how to do everything from how to make their own soap, or how to learn Spanish, or just whatever skills that we can offer to our community in a free way, using this whole house as a community center, having benefit shows. I'm involved with a lot of musicians here in the city too. So we raise money for various causes. We raise money for survivors of human trafficking. We've done Food Not Bombs and different type of community activism. It all centers around this house. So we use it for the gardening, to bring people here, to teach them to be a little bit more sustainable and less reliant on the state and corporate complexes that don't serve the people. We try to give them a sense of community by putting on music and art events, and promoting and working with the musicians and the artists as well, because we recognize that a true evolution or a revolution that steps outside of the paradigm that we're used to is going to have to involve art and music and conscious people of all types. So we really try to work. We're trying to do something. We're not just trying to get people to vote or get people to be aware of political philosophies. We're actively trying to change the culture, and that's really what my goal is. Is we have to create a culture that, or at least I believe that we have to create a culture that represents the values and the beliefs of us, the people. Now, us as people, human beings, what I like to call free humans existing in this planet, we're speaking from across the world right now. We have probably hundreds of different beliefs and values in different areas, but I think at the end of the day, we value human life. And after that, things get more complicated, and there's a lot of different debates about different political philosophies and all sorts of things that we can spend our entire lives fighting each other on. But there are also is a wealth of information in areas that we can find common ground on, and we can focus on that, and we can build from that. So my goal has been to use my local activism here in Houston to help other people understand, or to help my community understand what we're about, and to put it in action. You know, as you said earlier, my brother, not about just philosophizing about these things, but actually trying to show them in action. And that's really a big focus. And outside of Houston, outside of just what I do here in Houston, I'm also a freelance journalist. I write for the antimedia.org and activistpost.com, and a bunch of leading independent media, English-speaking alternative media websites, Anti-Media, Activist Post, The Mind Unleashed, Mint Press News, and others that I work with on a journalistic basis. So I use my journalism to propagate a message, and that message is that the answers we seek are not going to be found in the state or the corporations. They're going to be found in our communities. I try to bring people to that message, and then I try to use my activism in the city as an example of, well, one example, not to say that we've got the answers, because I want to learn from all the beautiful people around the world. I want to learn from you guys. I want to learn more about what you guys do in your communities, and what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and take what works for my community, and we share, we grow, and we build something beautiful. And really key and central to that concept is the concept of freedom cells. And I can either stop now if you have any questions, or I can go further into what freedom cells are. Okay, cool. So freedom cells is a concept that I've been using for, I think, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years now, probably just under 2 years. And I originally heard the phrase freedom cells from a friend of mine, another activist, and we both promote the idea of agorism and counter-economics. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of phrases, and again, now I'm getting back to the philosophy side of things. I do think that philosophy is important. Obviously, it's valuable. It helps us understand the world, and there's a lot of important philosophical questions that we need to eventually get to understand what we all believe about the world and how we can coexist while holding sometimes conflicting viewpoints. So if you guys can remember these, or just listen to this later, check it out. You can look up the phrase agorism. It's Agorism, agorism, as in the agora, the Greek word for the marketplace. And it was coined by a man named Samuel Konkin III in the 1960s and 70s. And the long and short of it is this. He recognized that in order for us to create a more free world, whatever we believe that looks like, if we're going to get around the problems of the state, around the statist institutions that hold and limit free humans from coming together voluntarily and creating the world they want, if we want to stop that machine, then we have to stop funding it. We have to stop using its currency is really the basis of it. We have to, in the United States, we call that the Federal Reserve Note, or the US dollar. I don't know if you guys also have a central bank. I'm imagining that you do, but there's some currency, financial manipulation going on, some economic slavery happening there, and that is the basis, the underpinning of all states, regardless of what they call themselves, whether they're capitalist or socialist or communist or some variation within there. These states depend on the taxation of the people and the funding to the people. So Samuel Konkin recognized this, and he said, well, instead of trying to vote them out, or instead of trying to go launch some attack and fight them, why don't we counter them by creating institutions, counter institutions that represent what we want to see? And the ultimate basis of that is the counter economy, what he called counter economics. So you have the statist economic system, which is going to be your mainstream economic system. This is where everybody goes. I don't know if you guys have sales tax, but out here, when you buy something, they tax you on that. So you're getting taxed the sales tax. You're also taxing your income. All these different ways they're taking from the people that fund programs, that whether or not we agree with the programs and whether or not we think that they're valuable. Maybe some people say, well, I like that they provide healthcare services. Even if we can say that they're positive programs, they're coming from money that was taken involuntarily from the people. So whether or not you like the program, whether or not you wanted to give your money, maybe they took it and spent it on something you didn't agree with. So the idea then is to take that out of the equation and to rebuild new communities and new societies that represent the health of the people and that aren't done via force and violence, which is what all states are predicated on. So Konkin said, if we're going to create something better than that, then we need to create a counter economy. And the counter economy is anytime you do business with a brother or a sister and there's no third party, a state or a corporation or any middleman involved saying, give me 5% of that or give me that, that is the counter economy. That is the black and the gray market. So Konkin said we need to create the counter economy. We need to use all of our power, our economic power, to siphon power away from the state. So you take their funding source, so they can't launch wars anymore, and they can't, they can't launch for us, the United States. They can't launch wars around the world and can't, go conquer some new people. Well, if they didn't have the people, the tax farm to depend on, they wouldn't have the resources to do this. So essentially, Samuel Konkin said, every time that you go out there and you do business with another person, say you get them to cut your hair, or you get them to mow your lawn, or do some kind of service for you, and that involves either just barter or cash that's not taxed and not traced. It's not the credit system. Nobody else is getting anything out of that. Or even now today with things like cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin and Dash and all these new cryptocurrencies that are coming out because of the internet and blockchain technology, you can also use cryptocurrencies. So anytime you do business in that format and the state doesn't get any of that money, that's gray market. And black market, he talked about, again, nonviolent activity that the state considered to be illegal. So maybe if you are the local cannabis salesman and you sell people a plant that they choose to ingest, that's something the state thinks is illegal. All that money you're making, you're not going to report that to the tax, to the IRS, to the tax people. You're keeping that for yourself. The idea is that not only do we just take the money from them and hold it to ourselves, like just for our own benefit, but you're taking the money from the state, using the gray and black markets, using counter economics, and you're redirecting it into your communities. So he describes this in his book, The New Libertarian Manifesto and Agorist Primer. Those are both online for free, and I think they're interesting reads. They're worth your time. They're not very long. So he talked about those concepts, but in his books, he didn't really describe how it was going to take place. He kind of had this vision and said that society is going to go through 4 phases, and he predicted the phases and how it might look like in the future, and he even predicted that computers, which were barely around when he was writing the books, he predicted that computers were going to help these movements take place. And he died in 2004 before Bitcoin even came out, so he had no time to see that the ideas he predicted came into being. So again, he outlined a vision, a possible route using counter economics to take power away from the state, create more wealth, bring it back to the communities, create local power, and create the things that we want to see. But he didn't exactly say how we make that happen. I believe that freedom cells is the how to that. Freedom cells is the mechanism. It's the key that fits right into the equation. So freedom cells are small groups of individuals, much like yourselves, right out there hanging out and having a good time. You guys are already a freedom cell. You are a group of like-minded individuals who want to assert your autonomy and your sovereignty, your individual sovereignty, as well as your collective power together to create something better, to create change within your community. So the idea then is this freedom cell, which ideally would be about 8 people, 8 to 9, maybe even 10 people. There's some good research out there that shows that people with too little people in their group, they can't get a lot done. If there's too many, you have too much conflict. So 8 seems to be a very ideal number for small groups of people to manage certain tasks and come together. So if you imagine this is, again, as like a network, the cell comes in from the idea that each of us are made up of billions of cells within our body that are all doing their own individual task, but they're also a part of something bigger. They're a part of the whole that is our body. So each of us is like that. We're all individual and we're powerful and beautiful on our own. We come together as 8 and we create this cell, right? And then these are some of the ideas that we've done in Houston. You guys can expand upon this and make it whatever you want it to be. But we wanted to use it as a way for preparedness for various emergencies. In Houston, we get hurricanes sometimes. It could be a weather emergency. It could be economic emergency. It could be a state of war. Whatever it is, it's wise for you and your group to be prepared and to be skilled as well. So we wanted to make sure that our freedom cell, our group of 8 people, have up to 3 months worth of backup supply food, that we all have an encrypted form of communication, a safe form of communication outside of just Facebook and the internet. We wanted to make sure that everybody, also you could make sure everybody is proficient. Some people say proficient in the use of firearms or maybe some form of self-defense. You could also say you want everybody in your freedom cell to know CPR, how to resuscitate somebody if they're choking or if they get sick. So it could be about preparedness. You could say that you want everybody in your freedom cell to have a bug-out bag, emergency bag, whatever supplies you need in case you need to get up and leave in case of emergency. So what that does is that gives you the awareness and the comfortability that you have 7 other people that are equally prepared as you. And that's just on the preparedness level. Then when it comes to skills, you can do the skill shares idea, like make sure that everybody in the group can start a fire, that everybody can, as I said, use a weapon to defend themselves, that everybody can, whatever you think of, really. And the goal is that the power and the knowledge is diffused within the group. You're not dependent on one person. So there's going to be natural leaders in the sense that people are skilled in different ways. So maybe somebody will be the one to teach the class on how to build the fire. But once everybody knows how to do it, we're all on level playing ground. So it's a benefit that way, so that in case somebody gets sick, somebody leaves, somebody dies, whatever, the group is not dependent on one person. And some other ways that I believe it's helpful is education, sharing the knowledge again. One of the ways we did is we talk about permaculture. So we divide up a topic, whether it's philosophy, permaculture, any sort of engineering. It could be anything, a practical skill, a practical area of research, or just something philosophical. And you could divide it up among your 8 group of people and then come back in a week or 2 and teach each other everything that you know. So it's really just a great way to work in small groups. You could say, okay, today our freedom cell is going to go build a community garden. And then boom, 8 people take on that project. I also envision it getting to the point in the future, I hope, where our communities can defend ourselves against violent agents of the state or criminals, no matter what kind of criminals they are. In the United States, we have a big problem with police killing people constantly. People, the CPS, the Child Protective Services, will come take your child if you smoke a plant, or if they don't like the religion you have, or if you don't want to, medicate your child the way that the state says. And there are parents out there who are concerned. They're raising their children in this freedom mindset, and they're like, what are we going to do if the state comes to take our kids from us? So I envision a future where freedom cells could come together and we could defend our communities. So this idea would entail the next step as a freedom cell. So once you got your 8 group of people, you've got 8 people forming the circle. Then you would encourage each individual to turn around and create another freedom cell. So, for example, in Houston, when we started our first freedom cells, we're spread out across the city. Some of us live right in downtown. Others are coming from 30 or 45 minutes away just to come to these meetings. So that's good. It's valuable. It's necessary to start there. But if I'm getting in trouble or something, if something's going on and I need help for my freedom cell immediately, they're not going to be over here very quickly. I should mention, I think I forgot this aspect, is with freedom cells, we're also trying to use various apps to bring the idea. This is the great thing. Again, Konkin predicted technology would play a role in furthering us towards a more free way of living, a more free society. And apps like Cell 411, you can go to getcell411.com. It's an app that's like an emergency alert system, like 911 or something, like the emergency codes that different countries have. Except for you can create cells just like freedom cells. So if you go on there, there's a Houston Freethinkers cell, a public cell, and anybody can join that. And say you get a flat tire on the side of the road, or you're getting robbed, or you're getting stopped by a cop, or whatever it may be, you can send out an alert, and it automatically sends it out to everybody in your cell. So if you take that idea, the Cell 411 app, and combine it with our freedom cells, if there's an agent of the state coming to one of our members' house to take away their kids because they don't like their religious beliefs or whatever, they send out an emergency alert, not just on Facebook and everywhere else, like, hey, I need help, but they send out an emergency alert to everybody in the freedom cell. And everybody shows up and literally just peacefully but assertively resists them and stands in the way and says, we're not going to let this happen today. So again, back to the idea of people creating secondary freedom cells. If we're all spread out, we start the first freedom cell, but then you want to have people closer to your area. So then everyone turns around and creates a second freedom cell. So then what you have is you have 8 to 10 groups of 8 to 10 people. So you've got 80 to 100 people spread out in one city now, who can trade skills, who can trade knowledge. You also know that everybody here knows how to defend themselves. Everybody here has an encrypted form of communication. Everybody here has backup food in case they need it. So you're all on equal playing ground. You've got knowledge, you've got skills. And that then, if your freedom cells have grown and you have 80 to 100 people, and you send out an alert to 80 to 100 people, let's say even just a quarter of them come, all of a sudden you've got 15 to 20 people surrounding a house saying, we're not going to let this happen today. I'm sorry, like, get out of our community. You're not taking this kid. Or if a cop is abusing somebody, and the same thing, you send an alert, everybody shows up and asserts themselves and says, get out of our community, hop back in your car. And I've even talked about this. I'm kind of in trouble for it because I'm fighting a lawsuit or a case here in Houston related to this, but that's a whole other story. But you could say, we're going to disarm you, officer. You're violent. You came in here. You tried to abuse somebody in our community. Give us your gun. Get in your car. Get the hell out of here. We're not letting you in our community anymore. And I know that sounds extreme, and we're not there yet. We're definitely not there yet, at least not in the United States, not in Houston. But I believe it's important for us to get to the point of defending ourselves, because just because someone's wearing a badge or they're an agent of the IRS or the government doesn't mean that they have extra rights than any of us as free human beings. And they shouldn't be allowed to just come in and enforce their worldview on us. It's really insane to me. So we have to come up with ways to defend our communities if we're ever going to progress past that problem. I think freedom cells, in conjunction with apps like Cell 411, also Nextdoor.com. I don't know if the website is in your country yet, but I imagine it's all over the world. If not, it will be soon, or something similar to it. It's just a private social network for your neighborhood. It's much better than Facebook when you're trying to connect with people, because it shows you the people in your neighborhood, like the people closest to you, who may have signed up, who may be on it, and then you can post just like you would on Facebook, but it goes directly to your neighbors and to the people closest to you. And so you can say, hey, we're growing food in our backyard, or over here in this community garden. Come meet up with us and learn something about it. It's just a great way to communicate. So cell411.com, nextdoor.com, also our website, freedomcells.org, freedomcells.org. It's there. So the idea is to create that in cities all over the world, and eventually create this, what we're calling the Freedom Cell Network. And imagine being able to travel anywhere in the world and using these apps and our friendships and relationships to say that you know where like-minded people are, you know where you can go get good, organic, healthy, locally grown food, where you can go support the community systems that you want to, not the big corporate and state industries, So the Freedom Cell Network, the Freedom Cell concept, I think it's going to be one of the ways that we can do that. We can move in that direction. I just released a new book in April. It's available to download for free, as all of my books are. It's called Manifesto of the Free Humans. I really would appreciate if you guys check it out. Again, it's downloadable at theconsciousresistance.com/books. And I'll give you all these links later, brother, so you can share them with everybody, whoever wants them. But the book is all about that. Everything I just kind of went over, it's all about in depth of what we do with the Freedom Cells concept and how we can make it grow and how we can all use it. Because really the concept is just that core group of people. There's unlimited potential with the way we use it. You guys might use it in a completely different fashion than we choose to use it in Houston. But the goal is community power, community strength, and independence from other institutions that don't serve the health, physical, spiritual, and mental health of us, the people, and this planet itself. So I'm going to be doing a U.S. tour starting in less than a month. I'm doing 52 cities across the U.S. With my partner Miriam and my housemates. We're going to travel the nation and spreading this message. We're going to be doing community garden builds, doing volunteering in all the communities that we visit, and I'm going to be giving talks and presentations on this. And I believe by the end of the summer, for sure by the end of this year, that we're going to have help grow this movement. And there's going to be hundreds of freedom cells, new freedom cells, all around the country. And I've been contacted by people in the last year and a half that I've been doing these talks and talking about this through YouTube. I've been contacted from people in New Zealand, Brazil, Puerto Rico, all over the world, honestly, just Australia, Argentina, people who are saying, hey, we're already doing this. We call it something different. Or they like the concept and they want to get involved. So it really is something I think that we can all use in any way. And again, I think it's one of the answers. I don't want to claim, because we all have different problems and that we're facing, and our environments are different, our upbringings are different, our backgrounds are different, and that shapes our worldview. But ultimately, I believe that you guys are my brothers and my sisters, and that we are all working towards the same goal of a better humanity. And I hope that you guys will look into the concept, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was fascinating. I love the concept of freedom cells. Me too.
Yeah, thank you guys.
It was very inspiring. We are in a way a freedom cell. Yeah. And each one of us is a freedom cell on his own.
Yeah, absolutely.
I view myself as sort of the freedom cell. And what I do in my activism, I try to inspire people to do the maximum that they can individually. Because when everybody acts as individuals, it's really impossible to stop us. Because I realize that it's very easy to stop. It's very easy to threaten me, arrest me, take my house, put me in trouble. But if more people are doing it, it's only going to make more problems to the state. If 5 people are doing just exactly the same thing as I, and the state decides to screw me up and arrest me, and take my dog, God forbid. So it's just going to make more noise, and it's going to make the project more popular. So
absolutely.
And also, if a group of people, someone from the self, the community, will come and come as a block between the officers of or the agents of the government, and block them from taking or somebody from the community or doing something to them. It is very inspiring, and I have thought about this idea time ago, and it's very inspiring.
Awesome. And the other thing I didn't mention is it's already started to happen. So in Detroit, in Michigan, here in the U.S., they've had an ongoing situation the past few years where they've got, like, in Flint, Michigan, there's like poison in the water. There's a lot of things going on with the water, and it's because they're having a really bad economic collapse. They have been for years now. So tons of people left Detroit. Most of the city is abandoned, so you have all these old structures just totally falling apart, and most of the neighborhoods, they'll be completely empty with only a couple people left over, and the people who are there are struggling, and they're in debt. And the city of Detroit has, for years, basically allowed corporate debt from corporations in the city to pile up in the millions and billions of dollars, and they don't bother them. But people in the community who owe as little as $100 to $200, they'll come and turn off their water. So there's a group called the Detroit Water Brigade, and I worked with them a couple years ago, and they're basically a freedom cell, and they just, again, they call it something different. Their main focus is just keeping the water on for the people. So they do all sorts of activism all over the city, bringing people water. And whenever the city trucks come in and they try to turn off the people's water, they basically call in their freedom cells, but they call them groups of angels, is what they call them. And so they'll call in, hundreds of people, groups of angels, and they'll just link arms and they'll surround a house and they won't let the trucks come in and turn the water off, and they'll just leave. And they do it all the time. So it really just takes us getting organized and having a plan. I also think what's important when you start trying to do these kind of things is role playing. So one of you guys be the asshole cop, and one of you guys be the person that's getting beat down, and then everybody else come up and how do you respond to those situations? I've been in some of those real world situations. I've been tased. I mentioned that I'm fighting this court case, and it's because I was watching a cop just mishandle somebody, and I got in his face, and I never grabbed him. I didn't do anything, but I played it in my mind over and over. We've all seen the videos of cops killing people, and I'm just thinking in my mind, what would I do if I was in that situation? Would I just stand there and film? Or would I feel like I would have to stop it somehow, So I was in that moment, and I was really caught up, and I was filming, and I was just talking crap to the cop the whole time. And at one point I did say, I will disarm you. But I never grabbed him or did anything. But now I'm fighting a case now, and they're trying to put me in jail because of it. And it's because I didn't have a freedom cell there with me. I was alone. I was one person going in there and charging at them. There was other people around. But if we had been organized and if we had practiced this before, we could have all moved in very quickly, and not with weapons drawn or coming to fight the cops, but just using our force of the people moving in, and so they get the point that we're not going to allow them to continue to do those things. So the idea is already happening all over the world, I think, and it probably happens all the time spontaneously. I've seen videos of people trying to arrest a young girl in New York City, and the cops grabbing her all rough, and the neighborhood just doesn't like it, so they all just come in and stand in the way, and they push the cop back, and eventually the cop realizes it's not worth his trouble, so he lets the girl go and leaves. So it happens spontaneously, and so that's why I start thinking, well, how would this happen if we actually practiced this, if we actually planned this and coordinated it? How would the authorities respond if all of a sudden, all over the world, people are starting to push back and organize, and they realize they can't push people around anymore.
Part of what we do here in my freedom cell, what I'm doing is I brought the No State project, what Mark Stevens is doing. Mark Stevens?
Yeah.
With his work, with what he's doing.
Yeah.
But court and using the Socratic method to challenge jurisdiction. So I brought it to Israel and I translated it and I adapted it to the Israeli legal system.
Nice.
We're like 5 people here, and 4 of us have already been courts. I've been many times, and we're really doing it. So when it comes to having backup, having peers, fellow activists going and supporting you, it's like most important, because when I'm going to court to challenge the judge, to call him on his bullshit, and to expose the hoax, and I'm the only activist in the courtroom, and other than me there are just cops and lawyers and prosecutors. It's not going to do much help. Nobody's going to get too excited about it. But when there are other people coming with you to the courtroom, then it's something that the judge feels like the public is watching. So this is something we're really working on. We have a friend who is in house arrest now. His name is Otto. He spent 7 months in prison while his sentence is going on. His crime was growing marijuana, cannabis, for self-use. Yeah, it wasn't like a dealer or something, or the dealer makes it worse or something.
Yeah.
But he's using it. He has a licensed medical cannabis, but he was growing his own weed. So they put him 7 months in prison while his sentence is going on, and now he's in house arrest. And very few people came to the hearings. there were many hearings. And now we started a campaign to encourage people to come to the final hearing, to the sentencing. We expect really to crowd the courtroom next week.
Yeah, that's important.
For the sentencing, for the court part.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've kind of taken a similar strategy. My court date is not till August 18th, so I'm gonna go on tour first and have fun and spread this message. And when I come back, I gotta fight this trial, and we're basically gonna do a jury trial. So I'm gonna make it a public thing, you know. And my lawyer's already said that probably later this month I'm gonna release a video saying talking all about it and calling on a lot of support, and we're gonna get people to just put as much pressure on them as possible. And luckily I'm really connected with local media in Houston, so it won't be a problem to kind of broadcast it and make it as much of a headache for them as possible, hopefully to pressure them to just drop it before it even gets started, but at the least to make it as much of a headache for them if they're going to try to drag me through this. So I think that's awesome, man. I think it's great that you guys have a support system like that and you're able to put those ideas out there. I mean, how do they respond to you guys trying to push back against the laws and such?
Well, last time I went before a judge, the judge asked me, "Where did you hear about these ideas? Who told you about it?" And I'm like, common sense, man.
That's awesome, man.
How can you prove you have jurisdiction? Who told you about this question?
That's so great. Yeah, man. Have you guys been able to film any of it?
Film, no, it's too risky.
Yeah.
But we're recording always audio because we
Nice.
practice. We make lots of role plays. We analyze. We see where we were where we made mistakes. What we said we shouldn't have said. What we
Yeah.
not to say.
It definitely involves keeping cool under pressure, man. I've worked and dealt with a lot of cops over the years too, and like I said, I've had instances where I'm like, damn it, I lost my cool, or I slipped up here and there. I could have spoke more clearly or just more directly. It's definitely an art. I appreciate your time, brother. I got to get going here, man, but I appreciate you guys letting me talk to you tonight.
I'll share the links with these books. All the links, things we talked about, your group, your new group.
Yeah, I'll shoot you a message with all those links I mentioned.
Okay.
Thank you, Derek.
Great.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
brothers. Y'all enjoy your evening, man.
Yeah.